Well, hello, internet friends near and far. Welcome to another episode of Parks and Conversation. This is a podcast where we take some time to watch an episode of Parks and Rec, and then we talk about it. And by we, I mean myself. I'm Jason, and I'm joined all the way across town by my friend Jeremy. Say hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
How are you today, sir?
Good. I just thought I'd mix it up. I always ask you first. I'm well. I'm well. This is a great episode, and I'm excited to talk about it as soon as my voice
you're getting
I'm verklempt,
emotional already.
Yeah,
it is an episode full of great emotion, and
it's not every day the world ends.
No, it's about every 6 months,
except the one day. So whenever that is.
So, before we get too far into this episode, though, I mean, we do have some emails.
Wait, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Before we get too far into this episode, I'm good. I mean, it's a beautiful day, and I have no complaints about the weather this time.
I'm glad we've checked in. Good.
Yeah. So, but we have some emails from people that I think we should discuss. And the first one, let's go to listener Christy. This is a town forum, everybody. Town forum. We're going to hear from the unwashed masses, as Ron would say. And so this is from Christy, who is writing about her treat yourself options. And she said her first thing was, depending on how much money I have available, but my most recent large purchase was a Circuit Easy Press iron and mat with a cutting ruler, 2 sets of tools, and several rolls of vinyl for making custom t-shirts.
Is it Circuit or Cricut?
Cricut. Yeah, it looks like it should be Circuit. Cricket. Yeah. One of those.
Yeah, it's a vinyl cutter.
Yeah, so my mom has one too. Yeah, they're pretty cool. And also, if there are small amounts of cash available, she buys small chocolate bars like Ghirardelli squares or bars of similar size in different flavors: bacon, chili, salted caramel, pistachio, etc. flavor. So my favorite is etc. It's so good.
That's just all of them.
Yeah,
in one.
Yeah, it's like an everything bagel.
Yeah, everything but the bagel. At Trader Joe's, go try it. It's good.
It is good. It's good on all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some great options, Christy, because, treat yourself is a great day, but there's also the little treat yourselves throughout the week, throughout the year that, these Ghirardelli squares are fantastic for. So, yeah.
And you can break them up. You can dole them out throughout the week if you don't eat them all in one sitting. So you can treat yourself every night or day.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
Break them up.
You're welcome.
Break them up, you say.
I'm gonna eat this chocolate bar so I don't binge it later.
But yeah. Do you remember the growing pains? Not growing pains. Wonder Years. Wonder Years.
Oh, yeah.
There's an episode of Wonder Years where Kevin gets a zit on his forehead.
Yes.
You remember this?
I'm like, ah.
And he looks on his counter. He has a half-eaten candy bar. And he's like, it's the candy bar, right? And I was like 8 years old when this show came out. And I said, who has half-eaten candy bars?
You're doing candy wrong, Kevin.
You got to just eat it all.
The wonder is, why didn't you eat the whole thing?
Yeah. My favorite, so that scene stands out really vividly in my memory. The other one is when he's going pants shopping with his mom. And she says to him, there's plenty of room in the crotch. And then Kevin is uber embarrassed and imagines the overhead speaker saying, Kevin Arnold has plenty of room in the crotch.
That was the first, the cringiest show. Before, when I watched The Office and for the first time, that's where that took me instantly. It was like, oh, this is the grown-up version of the Wonder Years.
Yeah, it was so good. So good. All right. So that's, we've already derailed like a town forum.
Oh, for sure.
So here's another one. This is from Dana, who says, hey guys, Parks is my favorite show.
Oh, thanks.
Welcome. I'm glad you found us.
Oh, the show, not the podcast.
Yeah, no, the TV show.
How presumptive of me.
Well, she is listening to this, so we can only assume, unless she says the whole title of a thing, This is her favorite show. So she teaches high school and uses a ton of scenes to display concepts. So thank you for using our podcast in your high school.
Yeah. See, guys, this is why you got to stay in school.
Look at these nerds. They're not making any money off this.
Nope.
It is almost always on in our house because it's the only show the whole family agrees on. Yeah, we're bringing people together.
That's right.
Last year, Jim O'Hare did a cameo.
I still think it's the TV show, not the podcast.
No way to know. Last year, Jim O'Hare did a cameo for my husband for our 15th anniversary, and it was literally the best. My husband is also a dead ringer for Nick Offerman. Love listening to your podcast. You are approaching my family's second favorite episode. I cannot wait to hear your take. And so I can only imagine what that second favorite episode is. Maybe it's today's. But Dana, we asked a while ago in subject lines to use, quotes from the show for your subject line. Dana's subject line is, "What are you going to do without tides, Peru?" So pretty excited about that. And I love that joke because Peru is landlocked.
Yeah.
So that's just one of those little like geography jokes. That's hilarious. They're doing fine without tides all the time. All right.
Not enough geography jokes for sure.
Yeah. I always need more geography jokes. And then we have a email from an anonymous listener who prefers to keep their name off the internet, which I appreciate. And she says, "The End of the World episode is one of the most beautiful and touching episodes in all of Parks and Rec. It is the episode I watch when I'm emotional, and it means so much for me. The realization of Leslie that she can't force the relationship on Ben and the pain she feels are so relatable to me. Also, the love of Andy and April is so pure and beautiful. I love it." And then she says, "Also, you guys have a great podcast. I never miss an episode," which is awesome. Thank you so much for writing. And today, that's the one we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about The End of the World. Season 4, Episode 6, The End of the World. And this episode is epic in scope. And reading that email from that listener saying how it's so important to them, puts a lot of pressure on us. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, I don't want to mess it up. And because this is a great episode. There's a lot of wonderful, just touching things that happen in this episode. And then there's also Tom and Jean Ralphio's party.
Which, hey, there's some touching moments in there too.
Yeah. I mean, we see, again, Donna underutilized in this one. Jerry perfectly utilized. And then everybody else is just turned up to all the way. Like,
right.
They're just awesome character development all throughout. And so everybody's got something to do. I wish we had more Donna-ness in this, but everybody's involved in some way. And, there are some great pieces of the whole Parks crew. And the basic premise, if you haven't watched this yet, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast if you haven't seen this episode. Maybe you just listen to our introductions and they're like, okay, now I know how to approach this one appropriately. That's cool. It's kind of like the half-eaten candy bar. Like, why would you stop? Just keep going. But there is a cult in Pawnee that from time to time has parties and vigils to commemorate the end of the world. That should tell you everything you need to know about that cult, because so far nothing has happened. Also, Tom and Jean Ralphio, their company has failed, so they're going to throw a party for the end of the world. And so those are the big main things that are happening. But then there's another piece with April and Andy who thinking like, what if the world is really going to end? What would we do with our last night on Earth? And so they start attacking Andy's bucket list, which is fantastic. So, Jeremy.
Yeah.
First impressions of this episode. Go.
I love this episode. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite. I actually watched it twice. I watched it last night and this morning. just because it was really good. And I really do like the touching episodes. I got a soft spot for that. And that's one of the reasons this episode is one of the reasons why I love Parks and Recreation. There are funnier jokes throughout this entire series. There are better storylines probably, but this show just kind of encapsulates what I feel is like why this show is so amazing, not just the character development, because it can be funny, it can be sad, it can be emotional, like it can actually make us feel something other than just trying to make us laugh all the time. And I think that's important for a show like this. It makes it feel a little bit more relatable. And that's one of the emails that we got, and there's a reason why people like this episode so much. So yeah, that's my take. How about you?
I agree. I do enjoy this episode very much. I think the development of the town is so wonderful that, like, they mentioned many episodes ago that town was taken over by a cult for a little while.
Right.
And that could have been one of those things that just never comes back. But they brought it back. They brought it back, dang it. And it's so great. Hail Zorp. And so so like those kinds of consistent things, that the town is a real place with real people, like, it's so fun. And I really love Andy and April. And their relationship is the most, like, genuine relationship in I think in television history. I'm going to make that claim. Like, wow. More than Pam and Jim. I think Andy and April are meant for each other, and, like, the way they interact is how, like, it's how I feel married people actually interact.
Right. Like, and their arc, like, just knowing how the story progresses for them is very realistic, but very them, like, all of those situations. It's great.
Yeah, so I love this episode. So there's a couple ways we can go about this. We can just go through the episode, or we can break it down into arcs.
It's hard because the arcs kind of overlap in places.
Okay.
So however you want to do it.
All right, let's just go through.
Okay.
And let's just let it happen. So
I'm for it.
Okay, cool. So the cold open starts with Andy, who is Leslie's assistant. And this is really the first time we see Andy doing assistant work in the office. And his first task that we see is presenting Herb's Schaefer. And then he immediately bows before Leslie. And Leslie's like, "You don't have to bow." He's like, "As you wish, ma'am."
He's a herald.
Yeah, he is announcing guests and heralding things. And so Herb comes in because he's got some terrible news. And it's basically the world is going to end tomorrow at dawn. And so they need to reserve the park for their all-night vigil to prepare. And so then Leslie explains that, in the 70s, the town was run by a freaky cult. And every few years, the remaining members predict the world's going to end. They've got this whole all-night vigil. And I love the way this ends. This cold open ends. It's super annoying because it turns out when you think the world's ending, you don't aim so carefully in the porta potties.
Yeah. And I love too when she's like, it's going to be tomorrow. And she's like, "You're not giving me a lot of time, Herb." You gotta find you a spot. You can have give me a week's notice. Little heads up.
Well, I wonder if Herb is like feeling the Reasonablists are like their community is drifting, and so he's got a surprise end of the world. Like, we know,
like, it's a surprise party.
Yeah, it's like, guys, wait, hold up. We need to get together for this all-night vigil, because later on we'll see that he plans pretty far ahead.
Oh, yeah. And
so this is a bit of a surprise. And so Leslie's worked with Herb probably a bunch of times for these vigils. And so I do think she's kind of annoyed. It's like, "You're coming today?"
What do you do about this?
Yeah. Like, if you really think it's the end of the world, don't you think you would know? So part of this episode that is so frustrating to me, there is a frustration, is as a pastor, I deal with people who are very into the end of the world. and who look at things in the world and say, the time is nigh. And like, there was a guy named Harold Camping who, around the time that this episode was released, he was predicting that the world would end May 21st. And I think it was 2012. And this episode aired November 3rd, 2011. So like Harold Camping was like ramping up his end of the worldness while this was getting going. And so there's some of this that is just like a little too close to home with people I know. But then we get to learn about this cult, and you're like, okay, this is very different from the world that I know. So
right.
After the credits, Leslie begins to explain that the followers of Reasonablism are going to be joining together, awaiting the return of Zorp, the giant lizard god who will destroy the earth with his cleansing fire of judgment. Also, light refreshments will be served. And Jerry is excited. He's like, oh, last year they had pizza. Are they going to have pizza? And so she's like, no, they've got sandwiches and the nectar of 1,000 sorrows. And this is where we find out that Andy knows what that is. It's like, it's so good. It's root beer and red wine.
Oh,
I went to one meeting.
It's like, what?
And so, so he was there. And then it cuts to Tom in the S04.E06 hangar. And they're clearing out all their stuff, all their furniture. And I should tell you, I watched the extended version on iTunes. There's 27 minutes.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know what you saw, but so I don't know if there's going to be some things that maybe I saw that you didn't see. I don't know. There's no way to know for sure. So, so as Tom is sitting there, he's saying goodbye to the weird sea chair. And the guy is like, you really sat in this? Like, yeah, I felt like a tiny king. And so they're taking all the stuff out, and Jean Ralphio is like, hey man, we did it. And Tom's like, did what? We failed. We ran this company into the ground. And so Jean Ralphio just doesn't think that failure is a thing.
The important thing to remember is that it was a huge success.
Right. It's like, no, it wasn't. And Tom lists all the other failures in company heaven: Pets.com, Blockbuster, Ask Jeeves. My company is no better than a company where you ask a fake butler to Google things for you.
Hey, and the crazy thing is yes, Blockbuster is basically on its way out. It's still alive. There's still the last Blockbuster down in Bend, Oregon. So there's still hope.
Yeah, I was in Kenmore the other day, which is a town south of where we live. And I was by the Safeway.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go there. There used to be a Blockbuster there. Now it's all about pets.
Yeah.
And I used to go to that Blockbuster all the time because it's by where Kathy lived. And just driving by, I was filled with nostalgia. Like, I miss Blockbuster.
It's weird. The things that we miss are also, like, when you think about it, it was all a hassle as well, right? Like, going to Blockbuster, I think of it fondly. It's awesome. It smelled like nasty popcorn and stuff in there. I don't know. And you got to peruse all of the videos and, 200 copies of, the latest disaster movie or whatever. Yeah,
and there were two copies of Transformers and 200 copies of Transmographers.
Transmorphers, yes.
Transmorpher.
Yeah. And so, but the thing is, like, you had to check it out. You had to make sure it's there. Like, you didn't know before you went if the movie you wanted was there. And then you had to bring it back when you were done, or else you got charged a bunch or ended up owning it. And so it's like, now it's like, oh, movies are so easy to get. You can download them on iTunes. Half of them are on Netflix. And yet, it's like, I still miss wanting to go in and just peruse, just look at all of them. You never know what you'll find. It's it's different in person.
Yeah, totally agree.
Also a huge hassle. Like, I don't know. I don't want to go out.
Yeah, but I think the hassle of it made it so you're like, I'm watching this movie.
Right. Like, I worked for this.
I hunted and gathered this movie. I'm going to watch it. And like, your family's like, this movie is terrible. It's like, I paid $2 to borrow this.
Yeah, Mac and Me is not going to watch itself.
Oh, man. You gotta... Mac and Me. Wow. There is a ongoing thing with, listener, I would encourage you to Google this. Paul Rudd, who will be on this show shortly, Not our show.
Not our show. Shh, don't say.
That would be rad. But if Paul Rudd, when he would go on Conan to promote a movie, he would, they play a clip. And he would always have them play a clip from Mac and Me.
Yes, when the kid fell off the cliff in his wheelchair.
Yes. So great.
Which sounds like I'm making fun of a kid falling over. Which it's not. I'm not at all. It's just it's like a meme. So don't worry. I'm not terrible.
Yeah, but it was I think the whole Blockbuster world is like not having that experience. I think is making us weaker as a society.
Yeah, well, because there's the whole immunity thing too. I mean, who knows how many diseases viruses were passed on through
wound
Blockbusters.
Up in those VHS tapes.
Be kind, rewind.
Yeah, but I do think like we take all of the access for things for granted.
Sure.
And so like having access to all the movies and just scrolling through Netflix looking for something to watch and ending up not watching anything.
Right, just judging along the way.
Yeah, or just watching Cheers again. So.
Or the thing that annoys my wife the most is when I sit there for about 30 minutes and just watch all of the previews for everything on Netflix. Like, what are we watching tonight? Looks like previews.
It's trailer night.
That's right. So if you're in the Seattle area, one of the best places to go find movies still is Scarecrow Video down on, I believe it's off of Roosevelt. And it is a fantastic place. The people full of they love film and everything about television and movies. So if there's a place like that in your town, try to check it out and support them because there's not many of them left.
Yeah. And here's the fun thing. Netflix went to Blockbuster and said, what if we worked together? And Blockbuster said, that will never work.
Yeah, we're good. We got this.
And, we could still have Blockbuster and Netflix if they just would have come together.
Yeah.
And it would have been awesome to be able to Redbox is dumb. I hate Redbox. I hate it so much because it's you don't get to look at the covers of all the movies. It's so annoying. And so, yeah, I don't want to go to 7-Eleven to rent a movie.
Yeah, there's nobody there to condescendingly judge your choice when you get to the counter. Did I make a good choice? What are they going to do? Are they going to say they love that one or just go Mac and Me again, huh?
Right. Yeah, they're just well, okay, that's your choices. Have a boring weekend. So, so they are, Tom and Jean Ralphio are mourning the company, and we find out that Jean Ralphio started with $450,000, and they have $5,000 each left. And so what are they going to do? Well, Jean Ralphio's idea is to invest it and then accidentally get run over by a city bus to start a hip hop label.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tom's idea is to throw a party for the end of the world.
I love how he brings up, he goes, well, we could play it safe, but instead.
Right. Yeah. Playing it safe is accidentally getting hit by a bus.
Sure.
But playing it safe is throwing this big, huge party. And Jean Ralphio is in Laura Flynn Boyle from The Practice. Dilly, 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 swag. So, so then cut back to the office. And Chris is asking about this cult. And he says, why do they call themselves the Reasonablists? And Leslie's like, well, because if anybody criticizes them, they'll seem like they're attacking something reasonable. And Ben is kind of surprised by the brilliance of it. And Chris is like, do we have anything to worry about? And Leslie's like, no, they've done this 15 times. And nothing. The only thing that's ever happened one time is when Lance Armstrong dumped Sheryl Crow. And Chris is like, that was a tragic day. But Chris is like, we should go. Ben and I should go, just to, make sure that everything goes well. And my favorite line is Chris saying, I insist these people live on planet Nutbrain. I live on planet Nutbran. Bran and nuts are very helpful for your colon. So
thanks, Chris.
Yeah, helpful. So Leslie talks to Ben, looks like we have to do this. And Ben's like, I'll go, but I'm going to leave. I don't think we should hang out that much these days. It's still kind of weird. So Leslie is bummed, and her talking head is like, yeah, big deal. Lots of people don't hang out. Jerry and April, Obama and Madonna, probably. So we're in good company. So I love Jerry and April don't hang out. It's on the same level as Obama and Madonna not hanging out.
Right.
Yeah. So then April and Andy are working hard in the office, doing nothing, which is, Ron's culture of office work. And April's like, what should we do? And Andy is suggesting all the things they normally do: pizza, Xbox, make prank phone calls, get hammered, make out. And April's like, we do that all the time and Andy, he's so sweet. The repetition is key to a good marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So
you heard something like that one time.
Right. It's like, the repetition is something to something. I can't remember. So, because the expression is repetition is the mother of memory. Get it? I made a joke. So then April's like, let's do something weird. And it's like, we could do something off my bucket list. And so and April's like, yes, let's do this. So they're listing off the things. Catch the winning touchdown of the Super Bowl, make the most amazing grilled cheese sandwich, win the lottery, ride a unicycle, invent something. I'd like to remake the movie Shazam with Shaquille O'Neal where he plays a genie, and I'd like to get it right.
Yes.
Go
Finally.
skydiving, outrun a hippo, fly first class on a plane, and when people walk by, be like this. And you're just like, no, pointing to the back. Teach my son to throw the perfect spiral. Have a son. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to do things off the bucket list. And Andy's like, which one should we start with? We could change my cell phone plan.
That'd be fun.
So they start with going to the bank. And that already sounds fun. Because Andy's goal is to hold $1,000 in his hands. Which is like, when I was a child, thinking about $1,000 all in one moment, that would be awesome. And the teller hands him 10 $100 bills. And that is disappointing.
Yeah.
And I totally felt all of the disappointment that Andy felt when he's holding that. It's like, huh. So then they counted out into $1 bills. And that was what he was looking for. And Andy's so psyched by the volume of bills that then he's like, I want to move it all to nickels. 1 billion nickels.
No.
Which is not how many nickels it would take. And don't ask me how many it would take. I have no idea.
The bank teller was amazing. She's like, have you ever seen this much cash in your life? She's like, I just handed it to you. Like, she's
Yes.
so sweet. So she was so great, especially when they're like, whoa, how much do we have left over? $18.04. Like, wow, that's still a lot. And she's like, looks, I'm like, is it though?
Yeah. Yeah. You can tell this lady has worked with a lot of annoying people.
She's a bank teller in Pawnee.
Yeah. Yeah. So people probably come up to her like, I've got a great business idea all the time. And they're like, we're going to have a restaurant that just sells salads. And the bank lady's like, well, that's definitely an idea. So, yeah. So then cut to the park because they're getting ready for the vigil. And for some reason, Anne is there. I know she works part-time for the city, but there's no reason that Anne should have to go and collect rental fees. Like this, she comes up and she did not pay for the permit. And Herb didn't pay for the permit. And so Anne's like, it's $28. And Herb's like, oh, sorry. Here's a check. You can cash that tomorrow. And Herb looks at all the other reasonablists like, there won't be a tomorrow. And then Ron shows up and he's like, he's everybody knows him. And he's like, it's a beautiful night for the end of the world. Congratulations to all of you for reaching the finish line. And then a talking head, Ron explains why he's there. He's like, they're ridiculous. But they also require flutes for their ceremonies, and I make flutes in my wood shop. And so cut back to the park. He's like, flutes are $80, recorders are $150. And Herb is like, these are great. Would you take a check? And Ron is like, sure. And later on, we'll see Ron like counting cash because like he's making money off these people because he recognizes that they are just ridiculous. But someone's got to sell them flutes. So he's for it. Then we cut back to the party that Tom is throwing with Jean Ralphio. There are 4 VIP areas, one of which is sponsored by Sobe Lifewater. And we were just talking about Sobe the other day.
We were. That's weird.
And I totally forgot that there was an episode of Parks and Rec where Sobe Lifewater sponsored a thing. And then it made me realize Sobe has become douche juice. Like that's this party. Like as Tom was listing through all the things about the party, I was like, I never want to go to this ever. I would die to going to something like this. And so there's craps, roulette, the pirate ship, bouncy castle with bubbles, a shrimp wall where Roy Hibbert is just handing out shrimp, and free fedoras, the makeout room, get a gift bag. There's a Bengal tiger, 10 huge scary bouncers with earpieces. DJ Blunts is mixing up new beats, and only 200 people are admitted to maintain exclusivity. And then they're like, let's do this. Party starts now. They open the door and no one's there. And they're like, this is fantastic. No, you don't want anybody to show up on time. That would be a disaster.
One of my favorite parts of that too is when they go, it begins and they clink their glasses together and you hear the sound, but they both say clink as well.
Right. Yeah. So, so party's getting going. It's going to happen. Go back to the park. Shauna's there because she's writing a paper article for the Reasonablists. This is an event in town. This has happened 15 times already, and I'm just surprised that the newspaper's going. But
with all of the media outlets that they have, I mean, they gotta have content. They gotta come up with content somewhere.
Yeah, well,
even if it's the same content.
Yeah, I'm surprised her Perd isn't there.
Sure.
Because I would imagine Perd would actually be in the Reasonablists.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Like, it sounds
Joan,
to me
and Joan,
like you are a religion. Yeah, and Joan would she's probably tried to be in the Reasonablists. And they're like, Joan, you're too crazy for us.
Right, you're unreasonable.
You're unreasonable. You're out. And then they break her key card. So Sean is like, is there any reason this is a threat to public safety? And Chris is like, no, nothing, everything's fine. And then Sean's like, so why are two people from the city manager's office here? And Ben's response is, well, nothing better to do, which probably sounds more about a problem for me than them. And they walk off. And Leslie then gives them some headline ideas, which are great. The first headline idea is, it's the end of the world as they know it, but Pawnee feels fine. And that's too long. And then she has another one. Okay. Zorp Schmorp. Doomsday prediction falls flat as citizens spend pleasant evening enjoying one of Pawnee's finest parks. And so that one's longer. So let's like, all right, then just go to the first one.
Yeah. Gazebo, more like Gazoinkspo.
Gazoinkspo. So then Shauna's like, hey, he's cute. What's his situation? And Leslie's like, Chris? And like, no, Ben. And so then Leslie's jealousy rises up as she sees somebody else may be interested in Ben, and she gets all flustered. And so she's not happy about these developments. And Anne comes over, is like, what's happening? And Leslie's like, the world is ending. Shauna likes Ben, and and she's like, I know how this goes. They're going to fall in love. They're going to have babies. They're going to get married. And Sean, they'll change their names. And Ben will be Ben Wyatt Mulway Tweep instead of Shauna Mulway Wyatt. He's going to take her name. So she's annoyed and she's frustrated and she's like spinning out of control. And then Anne's like, nothing to worry about. Don't worry. But then they look over and they see Shauna puts her hand on Ben's arm, and they're like, oh, that's something. I've seen that move. And so Leslie's goal for the rest of the night is to stop that possible relationship. So that's part of the tension of what's happening at the Reasonablist Park. Not just the pending doom of the whole world, but there's dangerous flirting. So... and then cut back to Andy and April's house, and Andy is playing scratchers and he won $10, which counts as winning the lottery. And then they're having grilled cheese and is like, is this the most amazing grilled cheese sandwich ever made? And April says it's pretty awesome. And so like Andy's like, that's not good enough. I'm not trying to make a pretty awesome grilled cheese sandwich. Got to go back to the store. we're getting a different kind of cheese. And April's like, no, this is the most amazing grilled cheese sandwich ever. And it's like, okay, what's next? And
I love that. And I love that too about them. Like, he doesn't get mad. Like, he was going to go get extra different cheese, make the best one. And then even though she walks it back and says, no, this is the best one, he's like, that's good enough for me. Like, I know you're probably just saying that, but let's move on. Like, that was a nice little moment.
I don't know if Andy knows she's probably just saying that.
Maybe. Yeah. But I'd like to believe, or yeah. But even though it's still enough for him, he's like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
That's enough.
I think Andy has no reason not to believe April.
Yeah.
Because she has been, up to this point, completely 100% honest with him about everything. Like, she doesn't lie to him because there's no reason to lie to Andy.
Right.
He's not going to remember anything. So,
yeah. You're not going to lie to your dog. You're not going to say we're going to the vet, we're going to the park and then take him to the vet. Like, the dog doesn't know.
I do that all the time.
Oh, you tell, we're going to the park, and then
I say,
surprise.
You want to go for a walk? And then Maggie's like, yeah. And then we get in the car, and she's like, okay, this is different. And then we drive towards the vet, and like as soon as we get to the intersection where the vet office is, she starts to be like, oh, I know what this is. I've been here. This is where the people poke me with stuff. So yeah, it's pretty intense. So I always have to lie to my dog.
You lie to your dog. Okay. I take it back. I take it back.
Yeah. They're pretty smart. So at the park, Leslie's like, oh, hey, here you guys are still talking. Ben hasn't bored you to death by now. And so Leslie is trying to convince Shauna that Ben is completely boring. And he's like, hey, and also trying to pull Shauna away. So he's like, hey, I like your pants. You want to go get pants? Let's go buy some more pants. And Shauna's like, no, I think I'm going to head over to that party. And Ben's like, yeah, Tom emailed me. Maybe I'll go check that out. And Leslie is trying to make them not do that. And it's like, well, you should stay here because you don't want to miss when Zorp shows up. Boy, would your face be red. And then Herb hears them say that and says, when Zorp shows up, your faces will be melted off and used as fuel. I love it. And that Herb's ability to just like jump in will pay off later.
Like, and he says it like that's a good thing. Like, hey,
this is what we've all been waiting for.
That's right.
So cut back to the party, and there's a money cage thing where they blow all the money up, and whatever you grab, you can keep. And then Tom starts talking about the perfect party, how elusive it is, and how he's a party scientist, and this is his laboratory. And again, I hate this.
I would go just for the swag bags.
Well, what's in it? Is it like Dennis Feinstein colognes and perfumes? I don't want that. I'm positive that would be bad for my dogs. So
why are you spraying them on your dogs?
Because it says has not been tested on animals, so it's like someone has to.
You're doing the work. You're doing the work for Dennis.
That's how you save money.
Yeah.
They pass on testing to you. So
no big testing middleman.
Yeah, no, I can test things on my own.
Sure,
that's what I got all these chimps for.
That's right.
That's so awful.
It's very bad.
I'm sorry. I don't test things on animals.
Yeah, and you don't have chimps either.
Right. Yes.
Just dogs, I guess. All right.
You don't know about the chimps?
I did. Well, I mean, I've been here. I would be surprised. I've been to your house, so
yeah.
I don't know where you're hiding them.
Good. Perfect.
It's working.
All right. So back to the park. And Ron is talking to Chris. And Chris is like, so you were here when reasonablism first swept in. And it's like, yeah. And he gives us the origin story. Lou
so good. I love this.
Prozodovich was an office supply salesman. And one day he had an interesting idea. Maybe he could write a book to help people organize their office. And Herb, hearing it off of the distance, organize it and holds it up. The book was a big success. Then Lou had another interesting thought. Maybe there was a 28-foot tall lizard with a volcano for a mouth who controlled the universe. That is interesting, Chris says. So he wrote a second book. And then Herb hears again, organize it too, engage with Zorp.
I love how completely different thing, nothing to do with organization.
No.
But it's organize it too.
Yeah. And like organize it is fine. Organize it too. Like as he holds it up, it's got a bunch of like the flags and the pages. And
yes.
like he's very into it. And so Chris says, hey, can I look at that? And Herb's like, you can keep it. I'd skip the first couple chapters if I were you. Between you and me, it doesn't really get good until Zorp shows up. And Ron's like, Zorp is the lizard. So
it's just kind of funny too, because one book helps you get your life together, and the other one helps you completely destroy it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this is a part of what they're doing, of making fun of productivity culture. But I have this book by David Allen called Getting Things Done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great organization book. And it has actually really helped me. But there are people who are very into GTD and the whole GTD mindset. And it's not far from a cult. If David Allen said to the GTDers, you guys, there's a 28-foot tall lizard that we need to bow down and worship. There would be some who would say, well, Dave said, what are we going to do?
I think they are poking fun of it a little bit, because later on when they're looking for music to listen to, there's the Who Stole My Cheese audiobook. And that was a huge, like business self-help book, like how to get ahead in the business world. Like that was its own mini movement for a while. So,
right.
So yeah, no, I think you're right. I think they are subtly poking at these cultures and saying you're not that far off from a cult.
Yeah.
Does it spark joy?
Yes, it does. Everything sparks joy. That's why I have it all.
That's why I have it all.
Can't throw it away.
I'm the most joyful person because of it.
All my stuff is my joy.
Yeah. Why would I throw joy away?
All right. So many good questions. So Andy and April, again, back to their house, and Andy's wearing a motorcycle helmet, and he's like, I'm ready. And he's like, I'm not ready. I'm kind of scared. And he's like, you want to be an action star, and this is your chance. And so then we see Natalie is there, and she's going to film with April's phone, Andy, in a action scene. And the action scene is to rescue Janet Snakehole from Mikhail Petrov, played by Jerry. And so he's going to jump through the slider of their back door and then rescue April. And this all happens. It's amazing.
So Jerry and April are hanging out.
Kind of. Jerry does not want to be there.
There is a roast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why I would want to go home too. And I love Natalie in this scene.
Yeah.
She's holding the camera, like not pointing at anything in particular, just like holding it and like, whatever, totally Natalieing it up. So they, Andy, when he comes in, he's like, breaks the thing with the helmet. And he's like, oh, my face is fine, Mikhail Petrov. And Jerry's like trying to read the lines. Forget it, Macklin. You're too late. I'm sorry, guys. I need my cheaters. I cannot see. And he's like, you're doing really good. You're doing great.
And he's so positive.
Yeah. And April, as Janet, is like, he's stolen my jewels, and now he's going to ravage my body, and he stinks. He really stinks. So they fight. He rescues them. He rescues April. And Jerry is on the ground. He's like, can I go? Gail is making a roast. And they start making out. And Jerry's like, ugh. So that's one more thing off the bucket list. Cut back to the park, and Ron is playing some beautiful music on the flute. It's a flute circle. It's like a drum circle, but somehow worse. And finishes the song, and he says, that was Symphony for the Righteous Destruction of Humanity in E minor by the late Lou Przodowicz.
So Lou organizes and writes music.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very he's got a whole...
He's a Renaissance man. A
whole worship system happening here.
Yeah.
And so Ron reminds them the flutes are for sale, and he says, you can't take it with you, people. And then Chris comes in and is like, hey, I just speed read both of your books, and full disclosure, I think they're bonkersville. But I did notice you are interested in reincarnation. And Chris is, in interested in Eastern philosophies, right? And so Herb says, like, it makes sense, right? From the universe we emerge, into the universe we return, and there are infinite forms we can take in infinite universes. And Chris is like, that's wonderful. Well, this morning you will take a new form, that of a fleshless, chattering skeleton, when Zorp the Surveyor arrives and burns your flesh off with his volcano mouth. That was very strange what you said. I don't like it as much as what the other thing you said. So Chris is really seeking here.
Yeah, he's looking.
He wants something to hope in, right? But also he also doesn't want to become a chattering skeleton.
Right. I don't like that part.
Yeah, that's Bunkersville. And so Ben starts to leave and Leslie sees it and he's like, where are you going? And it's like, hey, come hang out. Let's play this new game I made up called Chess Risk. It takes 15 hours to play. And he's like, no, I'm going to go to that party. And he's like, oh, wait, there's something else. I need you to go. I want you to see that. And so they basically, Leslie hijacks Ben away from going to the party and tries to stop them. But Leslie ignores Anne. And then cut back to the party and Ben and Tom are now dressed as drum majors, and they introduce a drum line to the party. Which again,
drum lines are awesome.
Drum lines are awesome in the right context, like at a sporting event, at a party, inside.
Very loud. Very loud.
Too loud.
We're old. We're old guys.
Old.
That's too loud.
As soon as this, I remember this came out 11 years ago. So I would have been.
And you were too old.
I would have been 30 years old. And at that point, I was like, it's too loud inside for that. You got to do that outside. That's an outside activity. So, so the drum line's happening.
Get out of my hangar.
Oh, man. It just, like, even thinking about it, like, I get tired with their party. So Ben and Leslie, cut back to Ben and Leslie driving around, and Ben's like, we've already been down this street. And Leslie clearly is just driving. And she's like, where's your favorite place to go? So, and then they end up at the special location, which is an abandoned old gas station. And Ben is like, is this where you're going to murder me? And she says, no, this gas station was owned by Mick Jagger. And I know how much you like financial records. And I found it when I was researching for my book. It was for M. Jagger. I thought maybe it was a woman, but nope, it was Mick Jagger, owned from 1951 to 1958. And Ben's like, oh, so he was 8 when he owned this. Like, yep, absolutely. You're standing on rock and roll history. And Ben just says, look, we can't do this. We can't hang out. We broke up and we can't keep doing this. So it just makes it harder. And so Leslie's like, oh, okay. And that's heartbreaking. You can see the sadness in Leslie. Like, she does not want to admit that her choices have consequences. And her choice to run for city council had this consequence, that her and Ben couldn't have the scandal of their relationship keep Leslie from pursuing her goals, which is tough. That's a tough thing to acknowledge, but she's coming to acknowledge that. Speaking of goals you can't, that you can't always accomplish, cut back to Andy and April. And they're going on the list. And so Andy's like, this one would get us arrested. We can't do this one because we need Eddie Vedder and a time machine. I think we've really done everything that we can do. And April's like, really? And then so she looks at the list and like, we can do this. And I love how they build April and Andy's closure for this episode. Mm-hmm. Like, we could do this. And Andy's like, no, it's impossible. And keep in mind, the world could end in just a few short hours.
Right.
And April's like, no, we have $1,000. We're young and irresponsible. Let's go. And Andy's like, our car will break down. She's like, well, steal my dad's car. And April's like, well, look, this is dumb, but we have enough momentum right now to keep doing something stupid before we change our minds. And he's like, you are right. No thinking, just stupid. Yes. So they go. And they have got their plan. Cut back to the park, and Chris is talking with Anne and Ron, and talking about reincarnation. And Chris is like, it's unlikely in Buddhist thought that you would come back as a human being. You could come back as a pretzel or a socket wrench. Ron, what would you like to be? And wants a socket wrench. Sounds pretty good, actually. And Anne's like, I think you can spend so much time thinking about reincarnation that you don't live in the moment now. And Chris is like, that is beautiful. Let's go to Tom's party. And so let's have some fun in this life. And so they're like, yeah, that sounds good. So they leave. And then Ron's like, no, wait, I'll go with bolt cutters. Which is so great.
Yeah.
But it's also brilliant. Like Ron is like, I want to be useful.
Right.
It's like a socket wrench is useful, but also a socket wrench will last forever. like it's like it's going to outlast all of us.
Right. And just the fact that like he thought about it. Like he was like, you know what? Oh, maybe not a socket wrench. Like what was going through his mind the whole time? What were the other things he came up with? Hammer? No. Screwdriver? Probably not. Bolt cutters. That'll get you into things. And
it's so great. So then they go to the party and Anne and Chris are dancing, and Anne says to him, maybe you'll be reincarnated as a good dancer. And Anne's like, or Chris is like, I love that. So here we have a hint of future relationship with Anne and Chris. They're healing after Chris's embarrassing breakup with Anne. Their friendship is growing. But yeah, there's more to this relationship than we see right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where the only time we see Donna. She's talking to Jean Ralphio and Tom, and Jean Ralphio is wearing a super blonde wig for a minute. And she says, this is the best party I've ever been to. And Tom's like, I don't know, David Beckham didn't show up.
Yeah.
That's a long shot. And then Lucy shows up out of nowhere. And Lucy says, yeah, Jean Ralphio called me and told me that this was a very special occasion. I should come down. So yeah, it's nice to see you. And Tom's like, wow, Jean Ralphio, you did this for me? And then the talking head, Jean Ralphio says, I actually forgot they ever dated. So yeah, good job, Jean Ralphio.
Yeah, but they had that moment for a second where you're like, oh man, like, oh, thank you for everything. Thank you so much. And they hug, and it was like really, real. And then it turns out, nope.
Yeah. Everything Jean Ralphio does is for himself.
Right. Exactly.
So, So then cut back to the park, and Herb, oh man, I wrote this down, but it is not showing up properly. Herb is leading in a final prayer here with the Reasonablists, and need to expand my notes. Oh man, go. Dawn is nigh. Zorp the Surveyor approaches, and all earthly debts will be repaid to the original source of life in the universe. Last call for donuts.
I would, if I thought the world was ending, I would want donuts around.
Yeah, I absolutely am. Yeah. I just love that it's like last call for donuts. And there's a finality to it. Like,
this is it.
No, this is the last call. Last call for donuts. And so
what would your donut be?
If it had to be the last donut?
Last donut.
Oh man. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You first.
You're walking up to the folding table. The cardboard box is there. It's been picked over a little bit. You got a choice between an old fashioned, one of those weird like spongy ones that are spiraled. I don't like those.
Oh, I love those.
Maple bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably I would go with a maple bar probably. If there was an apple fritter, that's what I would have. Apple fritter.
But the likelihood of an apple fritter at this point in the evening is real low.
Pretty low.
But I mean, you're pretty guaranteed to have a bear claw and the spongy thing, because a lot of people steer away from those.
I don't like the spongy ones. Those are weird.
I like to think of them as like an appetizer for another donut.
Yeah, they're very deceiving because you bite into them and they just they're full of air.
Yeah, it's like a moist croissant.
That's really weird. Yeah. Soggy croissant. Who wants a soggy croissant sandwich? Hopefully just like that half a maple bar that somebody had I'll just have a half of one more. So I'd finish off the other half of the maple bar probably.
Okay. Yeah, I would go with maple bar just because it's a good, it's a reliable donut option.
Sure.
But yeah, listener, let us know. End of the world. What's your donut of choice? Raspberry filled would also be, if it's available, I would go with the raspberry filled because you get the delicious glazed donut and a little bit of raspberry jam. So you Can't go wrong. So Leslie asks Ron, what would you do? Because she came back after Ben left, and Ron's like, I'd like to I'd drink some whiskey and go see my ex-wives. I want to watch them meet their fiery end with my own eyes. And then Leslie's like, can I ask you, talk to you about a personal matter? And Ron's like, no, but given there's only 20 minutes left of human existence, also no. And she basically says like, look, I lost my mind. This whole thing with Ben is not great. We broke up because of me. And Ron's like, well, that's significant that you would want to be with him. Problem is, the world is not ending tomorrow. The sun's going to rise right over there. It'll be a regular Friday, and you'll be in the exact same position you were in before. So she needs to stick with her decision. And it's hard to deal with this, but she's coming to terms with that. And so the thought, Leslie says, it's just the thought of him with someone else is making me miserable. Then Herb hears, if it makes it feel any better, Leslie, we'll all be dead in about 20 minutes. Leslie says, that does make me feel better. Thank you, Herb. And Ron, guy's got ears like a fruit bat.
Yeah, because he inserts himself into all of the conversations from way downtown. Here's Herb.
Yeah, so I love that they finally call it out.
Right,
guy's got ears like a fruit bat. So, so then it cuts to April and Andy stealing her dad's car, and that's going to take them 30 hours to drive there. And Andy's like, I didn't bring any music. Does your dad have anything good? He's looking through the visor, which is already a bad sign. If that's the only place where you have CDs in your car,
music,
the visor, that's clearly dad music.
Right.
And because the way to go is the 24 CD notebook.
Sure.
Because then you can take it with you and you can take it in, and there's a possibility that you're switching stuff out.
Yeah, but once it's in the visor, that's where they stay.
Once it's in the visor, it might as well be forgotten about. That's now a load-bearing visor.
Right.
You can't take those out. And so they find the Starlight Express original cast recording Act 1 and Who Moved My Cheese book on tape, as well as Bobby McFerrin. I only know one Bobby McFerrin song, Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Hey, that Bobby McFerrin Yo-Yo Ma collaboration was good.
I am unfamiliar.
Well, trust me. Cello and a guy that makes noises with his mouth. Awesome.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
Okay. I wouldn't lie to you like your dog.
No, I lied to my dog. No, it's
your dog doesn't lie to you.
No, she's 100% honest 100% of the time.
Okay.
So Andy, they're going to drive for 30 hours each way. So Andy's like, look, you listen to whatever you want. I'm going to take a quick snooze for 12 hours so I'm fresh. So they're driving and then go back to the hangar. The party's ending and Tom's sending everybody out. There's shuttles to drive drunk people home. Valets will drop your car off later today. And designated drivers, you get a thank you bag and enjoy the giant bows I put on your car. And then Lucy comes like, hey, it was great to see you. And Tom's like, are you sticking around? I was like, I got to go back to grad school. This was a really fun party. And Tom's like, I don't know. After this is done, I'm going to be broke. I don't have a job. Well, this was the best party I've ever been to. He's like, yeah, it was pretty great. And then Lucy kisses him as he's complaining about how it could have been better. And then says, all right, I'll see you around. And Tom is just shocked. He's like, you saw that? Looking at the camera.
Right.
You saw that. And you saw that too. So then Leslie goes to Ben's house and yells through the window, Shauna Malway Tweep thinks you're cute. And then Ben opens the door. What are you talking about? That's why I took you to Mick Jagger's abandoned gas station. Because she thinks you're cute and I can't handle that relationship. And I'm coming to terms with the fact that our romantic relationship is over. And then she apologizes. And Leslie's like, why don't you tell Shauna to make herself decent? I'll apologize to you as well. Oh, Shauna's not here. I was, see what I did? So pretty clever of Leslie to do that. And yeah. So resolution there.
Do you think that it shows like that look when she walks off and Ben's kind of looking at her like, okay, you still you're trying to be good, and you're trying to end it, but you could tell that he could tell that she was still interested. that there's still a chance, right?
Yeah. Well, I do think that Leslie is coming to terms with it, but it's not over.
Right. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so then we cut back to Andy and April, and they arrive at their destination, and they walk out after parking the car, and we finally reveal where they were going, which is the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Right.
I love the Grand Canyon. It is so cool. And they're like, it is even more amazing than I imagined. And April can't even find reasons to be annoyed. And Andy's like, thank you. I wouldn't have done this without you. I'm just staring off in the distance. And then Andy says, where's all the faces? Like the presidents.
And she just looks at him, and then they cut. It was perfect.
Oh, I love that so much. Because one, Mount Rushmore is much closer to Pawnee, Indiana than the Grand Canyon. So like that's part of her annoyance in that moment is like, that would have been a lot easier to do. Yeah.
Or also I'd like to think that maybe Andy thinks that there are multiple national monuments in one place. Like
maybe
the Grand Canyon and Mount Rushmore and Yellowstone. Like, where's the geyser? Where's the blow up water?
Yeah. Where are all the big trees?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love that so much. That resolution of that plot line is just so great.
And even the way they filmed it, right? Like they get there, they don't show us right away. Like we're walking with them as they're experiencing the awe of the Grand Canyon, the beauty of the Grand Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that was really, and that's like just in the filmmaking portion, I felt like that anticipation and the sentiment was really, really cool because we got to see their reaction before because it's really hard to see, like we've seen pictures of the Grand Canyon and big natural things like that. But unless you're there in person, it's kind of hard to show the grandeur of things like that. Right. So anyway.
Yeah. The best way to take in the Grand Canyon is to see somebody else's experience of trying to take in the Grand Canyon.
Exactly. That's why Instagram was made. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So then the end credits, Herb is talking to Leslie like, look, I'm shocked. I thought it was this day, but I'm disappointed that the world didn't end that day. But I've been reevaluating the text and I was wrong. And Leslie's like, well, math is hard. So the actual end of the world is 6 months from now. And so May 19th. All right. So she looks at the calendar to see if they can reserve the park. He's like, there's already something in the park. He's like, I may have been wrong. It's May 20th. And she's like, that's free. So the end of the world is scheduled purely based on park availability.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All in all, great episode. Loved it. And so much fun. Any other thoughts? Anything else that stands out to you from this one?
No, I mean, Mike Schur wrote this one. And so, I mean, it was definitely right in his wheelhouse of all the comedy and the feels and everything. So, and again, 8.6, it doesn't have probably the most iconic lines or things like that. So I could see why people didn't. But for me, this is up there with some of my favorite episodes of the series. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. All in all, I love it. Again, Deny El Chima writes this, 6 out of 10. First, she tries to ruin Andy and April's wedding. Now she tries to ruin Ben's life. What is wrong with this character? She needs to go. This is unbearable to watch with her. I just don't think Deny understands. Denial? No, I don't deny. I don't think she gets it. So I'm surprised she's still watching this far into the series, but 6 out of 10. I would give it a 9. Personally.
Yeah, I'd put it up there in the 9 categories.
Yeah,
category for sure.
All right. Well, listener, thank you for joining us for this episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about the treaty, which is another great episode.
One of my favorite lines is in this one, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. We're going to have some some Ron and Tom interaction, and then everybody else had a Model UN. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. So,
awesome.
All right, well, we will see you you will hear us later.
Yeah, and I will see you later.
Yeah, sure. All right. Talk to you later, man.
All right, bye.